Hi everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. Now my whole family loves beef stew, especially my Ron. So that's what I'm going to be preparing today. It's a simple recipe and I know you're going to love it. Now I'm going to start out by preparing my broth. I've got 48 ounces of beef broth right here, and this is low sodium beef broth. You can use your favorite. So I'm going to pour my beef broth into this deep saucepan. Now, in this bag, I've got leftover scraps that I keep in the freezer year round. Every time I'm cutting up vegetables and I've got pieces left over, I wash them and I put them into this bag and keep them in the freezer. And I've got a little bit of a lot of things in here. And I'm going to put some of these scraps into my broth so it'll give it extra flavor. See, look at this. Here is some celery. And so there it is. So I'm going to replace the lid, and I'm going to lower the temperature to the lowest setting, and I'm going to let it simmer right there. Now these vegetable scraps are just going to release their flavor into that broth, and we're going to kick it up a whole notch. So while my broth comes up to a boil, I'm going to cut up my meat. I've got 2.5 pounds of chuck roast right here. Look at this. So I'm going to cut this up into nice pieces right here. Now I want to cut it up into about 1.5-inch pieces. Not too big, not too small. See, like this. Because it does shrink once you cook it. Now I have removed a lot of the fat right here. And this is the last piece right here. Beautiful. Now I'm going to salt it really well. I'm going to add some pepper. It's a little windy, so I've got to keep my hand down. I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. Now I'm going to sear it. Now when you sear your meat, you want to make sure that you get that beautiful golden color. That's what's going to give your beef stew that perfect color and flavor. So I'm going to be using this big cast iron skillet that I have over here, and I'm going to add some olive oil. I would say about 2.5 tablespoons of olive oil right here. And as you can see, it's smoking, and that's what you want. You want it nice and hot. Now I'm going to add my beef into the hot skillet, a few pieces at a time, because you don't want to crowd them. Look at this. Now the reason you don't want to crowd them is because if you do, they're going to get steamy. And when they get steamy, they don't sear as well. And it'll be just for about 1.5 minutes or 2. Beautiful. Look at that. See the color? That's what we want. We're going to have that perfect golden color and flavor. So after the other side is nice and seared, I like to just move them around, making sure that all sides are seared really nicely. Now I'm going to put them into this bowl, and I'm going to continue the process until I get it all done. So easy. So I'm done searing all my meat, and it looks absolutely beautiful. But I've got some bits in here from searing the beef. Now I'm going to add some of this broth with my ladle right here, just to deglaze it some. Look at this. And I want all the bits from the bottom. It's so easy to do this when you have a beautifully seasoned skillet, just like this one. So I'm going to get all this wonderful broth, and I'm going to put it into this big bowl. And I'm going to cover it up. Look at this. And I'm going to set it aside until I'm ready to use it. I'm going to be using 2 tablespoons of bacon grease. Now I keep all my bacon grease in the refrigerator, and it's perfect when I need it like today. 2 tablespoons. Now that my bacon grease has melted, I'm going to add all my onions. I have 1 medium large onion, and I have cut it up into nice big sizes like this. Not too small. Ooh, the bacon grease and the onions just smells so good together like this. So now that my onions are slightly translucent and they're smelling delicious, I'm going to add my garlic. I have 4 large garlic cloves. They were like the size of my thumb, like that. Finely minced. I'm going to move them around for about 30 seconds and let them release the flavor in there before I add anything else. Now I'm going to add my celery. I've got 3 medium large size celery ribs, and I've cut them up into small pieces like this. Not too small. Now I'm going to add all my mushrooms. I have 8 ounces of mushrooms. These are slices of baby Bella. You can use a little white button mushrooms, whichever ones you like. And I'm just going to move these mushrooms around until they release some of their liquid. About 2 minutes. You just want the mushrooms to get nice and soft. So it's been about 3 minutes. My mushrooms are nice and soft, and they have released a lot of their liquid. Now I'm going to add my tomato paste. 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'm going to let it get a little toasty down at the bottom. See? Just like that. The tomato paste will give it a delicious flavor, especially when it's a little toasted like this. So now I'm going to add my flour. This is going to be our thickening agent, and it's also going to give us a beautiful gravy. So I'm going to move it around until we get our flour nice and toasted. You don't want raw flour in here, because then it'll be pasty, and it's not going to taste good. So as you can see, our flour is nice and toasted. That's why it's real nice and gold at the bottom. Now I'm going to add all my broth. I'm going to put my sieve right here, and I'm going to add all my broth. I'm going to stir everything. Now I'm going to deglaze the bottom. I want all the bits in the bottom to come up with the broth. That's where the flavor's at. And look at the color that we're starting to get. So the bottom of my pot is nice and smooth. All those bits are in with the broth beautifully. Now I'm going to add all my meat with all the liquid, all the juices, everything. Look at this. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of crushed tomatoes. I'm going to add fresh thyme, 1 tablespoon of freshly chopped rosemary, and I'm going to leave about 1/2 tablespoon for a little later. 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, and I'm going to add 2 large bay leaves. Now I'm going to stir everything together. I'm going to replace my lid, and I'm going to wait until it comes up to a boil. Once it comes up to a boil, I'm going to lower the temperature to a medium low, and it's going to be cooking in here for about 1.5 hours. Now I wanted to show you that I've got a couple of more sprigs of thyme out here. After about 1.5 hours, I like to take out the ones that have already been cooking, and I'd like to add just another couple of sprigs. And I do the same thing with a fresh rosemary, see? So now I'll see you in about 1.5 hours. So it's been exactly 1.5 hours. Now it's time for me to add my last ingredients, which are my potatoes and my carrots. I've got 10 small little gold potatoes. They're cut in half, see? Now if your potatoes are just a little bigger, you can cut them into 3. Now I like the gold potatoes because they're not as starchy as russet. Now you can use the little gold ones, or you can use the red ones, whichever ones you like. And I've got my carrots right here. I've cut them up into pieces about this size right here, because if they're too big, then they take longer to cook. If they're too small, then they turn into mush. Now before I add my carrots and my potatoes, I'm going to remove these sprigs right here of thyme. See, here they are. I'm going to add just a little bit more thyme, and I'm going to push them down, and a little bit more rosemary. Now I'm gonna add my potatoes and I'm gonna add my carrots. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of chopped parsley. This would be a good time for you to taste it and adjust your salt. You can add a little more pepper too, if you'd like. I'm gonna replace the lid and I'm gonna let it cook for another 25 or 30 minutes. Now, if you notice that your potatoes are ready before that, your beef stew is ready. So I'll see you in a little bit. So it's been exactly 30 minutes and my beef stew is ready. Now it's at this time that I'm gonna add my peas. I've got half a cup of frozen peas. I'm gonna add them in just like that. So now I'm gonna replace the lid and I'm gonna bring my bowl and we're ready to serve. I'm gonna be serving this with French bread. I just got one baguette and I just tore it up into pieces. This is about half of one. See, just like this. Now it's time for the taste test. Mmm. 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 You can dip your bread in the beef stew. Mmm. 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 Mm. Oh my. I can't tell you enough. This beef stew is hearty. The flavors, everything I put into it has come in together beautifully. I know you're gonna love it, and it's so perfect for this time of year. So this is my special beef stew. If you like my recipe, give me a thumbs up, send me a comment and tell me what you think. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Thank you.